individual for suggesting that to me. Now, on the other side, when I was coaching, had a young man who wasn't that much younger than me, but he was finishing up his. Actually, he was just started his teaching career at a high school, and he expressed an interest to help with the women's track team where I was coaching, and I said, "That's great." And one thing I found, and that you may already know this, is that an assistant coach, especially if he or she is younger and a little closer in age to the athletes, has a special relationship or the ability to communicate that you don't have. And he had that. You know, I was an authoritative figure. I was older, a little bit older than him and much older than the athletes, but he was close enough to their ages that they related to him. Some of them related to him better, and I was all for that. And one of the things that I'll always remember is coming into it was the National Christian College Athletic Association National Track and Field meet, outdoor meet. And we were getting ready for the mile relay or the 4x4. And he came to me and he said, "You know, this girl that we have anchoring, you know, she has a faster time on paper, but this other girl has more heart. And if we get in neck and neck on the last leg, I think we want this girl anchoring." And I said, "Well, that makes sense." And so we made the switch, and sure enough, it came down to, we were pretty close, and this anchor girl had the heart, and she brought it home. And excellent intuition by this young coach, partly because he was a little closer to the athletes than I was. I mentioned earlier that you have to meet the parents, and that you can't be intimidated. Had a couple situations like that. Had a young lady, and by the way, if you're recruiting an athlete, you always you want to meet the parents, you want to get on their good side, and you especially want to convince the mother. It doesn't mean you don't want to convince the father, but much of the time, the mother is the one that needs to be convinced. A couple of times I had some, I wouldn't say they're exactly run-ins, but there were discussions with parents that as a younger coach in relation to the parent, it can be kind of intimidating. I had a young lady who, in cross country, we were at a meet where we had to designate our top 7. And it was the district. The NAI used to be in what we call districts. And we were in District 22, and I had to designate my top 7. And we were running at Rio Grande, by the way. It was when I was coaching at Malone College. And I designated my top 7, and this young lady was not in that top 7. And the father came to me and expressed his displeasure. I said, "Well, I'm just going on times." And he said, "Okay, well," but everybody got to run. We had a separate race for the varsity, and then all the others got to run in the second race. Well, this young lady surpassed my number 7 with her time. And so, okay, so we'll put her in the national meet when we go to the NA Nationals. And we did, and she kind of fell on her face, not literally, but figuratively. Didn't do any better than the other girl would have. But in that dialogue with the coach, with the parent, I had to be honest with what the decision I made, but also consistent with what I had promised in terms of if she betters the time, she can run. You need to address player feelings and not personal issues necessarily. Before practice, for example, this was not included in the text, but it came to my mind in terms of mentoring, as a mentoring coach. What kind of prior to practice things do you do? What do you do before practice actually starts? Do you have stretching? Do you have calisthenics? Is there a team leader that leads that? In certain sports, like for example basketball, that can be, from my perspective, very easy to do because everybody's on the same page. There's not as many players. But if you're coaching track, you've got all these events, everything from the distance runners to the throwers to the hurdlers to the jumpers to the sprinters, and you want to have some type of an activity that brings everybody together before practice. How do you do that? Well, it's not that you can't, but let me give you an example of what happened with us. The men's team, the coach he recognized the need to bring the athletes together and not have them go their separate ways necessarily. So he initiated calisthenics. Everybody was supposed to participate. Well, there was one distance runner who said, "No, I'm not going to do it." And the coach said, "Well, sure you are. We need to. This is important for cohesiveness." He said, "Those exercises you're doing, they don't help me." He said, "Well, if you're not going to do them, you at least got to be here." And so they went along with the exercises, and here's this young man standing with his arms crossed, his legs crossed, and you can tell he's hating the situation. You can tell from his nonverbal cues, and so he never did them. And I would love to have the opportunity to ask that, he's not a young man now, what he thought about that. Because since then, he's coached on the college level. He actually has a PhD and is teaching at a Christian college down south, has done some coaching. I think he still coaches cross country. And my guess is he's come up against the same type of thing. I'd love to say, "Hey, do you remember that? What do you think about that? Have you ever run into that situation before?" I probably never will ask him that, but I've thought about it since then. Finally, your author notes that the heart of communication is self-awareness. What is the message that you intend? What are you trying to get across? And consider, what is the message that is actually getting across? Are you successful with what you intend, or is there something else coming across that is not as effective? Well, that concludes that chapter. I would encourage those of you who are still considering writing your first draft. We've gone beyond the last date to get full points, and we're coming closer to when the last draft is due. I'm guessing that those of you who have not turned it in intend to just turn in a final draft. That's your decision. It's up to you. But I would encourage you to do not ignore the assignment. This is a big assignment. And if you need help, reach out to me. I've been doing this for years, and I can help you. The chapter quizzes, those will remain open through the rest of the term, so that you can do them as the time that you want. There will be more PowerPoints that will be posted, and I'll be coming back to you again with more chapters. And just a final note is that I've been asked to teach sport communication in the fall. And so I think there are some of you who may have signed up for that. And if so, I look forward to seeing you in that class. And I just wish the best for you. My prayers are with you. Hope you're all staying well. And God bless you.